What do you wish more people truly understood about the mental health needs of Black and Brown youth in foster care?
I've seen different degrees of struggles with the children as far as different backgrounds that they come from, not knowing where their next meal is. So now that they have this blanket of security, they don't know how to act. You know, people don't imagine that when they think of the craziest situation where mom's on drugs, they have to steal food, or they don't know where their next meal is coming from, or they're wearing the same shoes for months at a time, or they have holes in the clothes, or their clothes smell. They're it gets that bad. And I've been around some of these children, and that does really affect them, in and it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. It's something that they have to start to trust again when they get um somebody loving, warming, something consistent. You can go in the other room and wash your clothes. You have your own bed to lay in, um, with clean sheets. You have new clothes, new shoes, things like that you didn't have. So it's definitely the mental struggle for some of these children is you don't know until you pull that bandage back and see how bad the wound is.
Hmm.
And it's hearing their stories and knowing how to help them,
Hmm.
really.
Today, we are honored to share the story behind Rooted and Rising, Triumph of a Faith Rooted Woman Beyond Foster Care. She is a living testimony of resilience, faith, and victory, a woman who not only overcame the foster care system, but now wears many crowns, standing as an example of strength, purpose, and grace. This episode is a tribute to the emotional strength and mental fortitude of women who carry it all. We sit down with a wife, mother, businesswoman, and creative whose story began in the foster care system, but didn't end there. Through grit, grace, and healing, she has learned to navigate life's transitions while wearing many crowns and still making space for her mental wellness. Together, we talk about the unseen weight of responsibility, the emotional toll of caregiving, and the courage it takes to prioritize your own healing while showing up for everyone else. This is a conversation about legacy, identity, and the quiet battles women fight behind the scenes, and how mental health is not a luxury, but a lifeline. This isn't just about survival, it's about wholeness, resilience, and the power of rising while rooted. You made it. Take a seat, take a deep breath. Let's step into this moment with intention. I'm your host, Selah, a wife learning to love with intention, a mama growing through grace, and a therapist walking others towards healing and wholeness. This is the space where we breathe deep, unpack gently, and rise with purpose. I want to take a moment to introduce a woman I deeply admire. She is the definition of rooted and rising. A wife, a mother, a creative force, and a business owner. But even more than that, she's a survivor of a system that was never built to protect her, and still she bloomed. She is a proud wife, mother of many, and a multi talented entrepreneur who also juggles a career outside the home. Coming from the foster care system and being raised by a single mother, she chooses to break barriers and create new legacy. Today, balancing family, business, and life with grace, resilience, and a drive to inspire others to do the same. Thank you for being here. Let's welcome this beautiful spirit, Gabi Zan. Let's begin at the root because healing starts when we tell the truth about where we come from. These early parts of our story shape how we build our everything else, and the pieces we've had to carry alone deserve to be brought into the light. Looking back, can you walk us through what it meant to grow up in the foster care system and how that experience shaped not only who you are, but how you show up in the world as a woman today?
Growing up in the foster care system was the best way for me. It's the foundation of my faith. I've built a lot of bonds, had a lot of life lessons, and I have lots of extended family. It was like trauma in through triumph, like kind of thing, where what could have been a really bad situation actually helped me grow as a person. I of I give, of course, all praises to God. He placed great foster care parents in my life. My Nana and Big Dad were the best examples of a husband and wife raising multiple children. They've had over, I want to say, 30 plus kids in and out of their home, and they've treated every single one like they were their child, nurturing each one, and a lot of them come from different backgrounds, things like that. So they definitely catered to all of that and gave me a great foundation.
Out of all of that too, for many, the truth is sometimes even trauma doesn't always scream. It shows up in
Right.
patterns. It masks itself as independence, perfectionism, over
Absolutely.
functioning.
I can name a few.
And we're gonna get into that, some examples, but healing starts when we stop pretending we're fine and admit that something within us is still hurting. So,
Right.
what were the emotional or mental health struggles you faced early on, and how did you begin the work of recognizing, naming, and healing
I
them?
think as a Black woman, of course, um, you're it's in you to just be strong because that's what we're supposed to do. And, we when we really just want the support and we want to be soft. And I think that was the mental challenge, like you said, being independent and headstrong. And in some ways it was great, but in a lot of ways it was a disadvantage.
It really reminds me that healing isn't a one time event, it's a daily decision, a decision to be honest with ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's the kind of bravery that breaks chains. For many Black and Brown youth, foster care doesn't just remove them from homes, it removes them from culture, from belonging, from identity. It disconnects them from very things that keep them rooted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you ever feel like culture or identity, your roots were lost, overlooked, or misunderstood while growing up in the system?
Actually, no. I grew up in Pasadena, California. So for me, it was easier to see more brown and Black kids that look like me. So that imagery definitely helped. I had never went to school with more brown and Black kids that look like me. So I think it was more encouraging as far as that. So I don't think my identity was lost. I think I more enough found it in that place. It was a huge part of me growing up and shaping my identity and loving my brown skin and, my curly hair.
They understood you and you understood them. You guys understood each other.
Yeah, we were going through some of the same struggles and they look like me.
Yeah.
So
Let's go even a little deeper because what doesn't get addressed in childhood often show up in adulthood, quietly shaping how we show up in our relationships and motherhood and even how we see ourselves. What do you wish more people truly understood about the mental health needs of Black and Brown youth in foster care?
Ooh. I've seen different degrees of struggles with the children as far as different backgrounds that they come from, not knowing where their next meal is. So now that they have this blanket of security, they don't know how to act. You know, people don't imagine that when they think of the craziest situation where, mom's on drugs, they have to steal food, or they don't know where their next meal is coming from, or they're wearing the same shoes for months at a time, or they have holes in the clothes, or their clothes smell. They're it gets that bad. And I've been around some of these children, and that does really affect them, you know, in and it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. It's something that they have to start to trust again when they get um somebody loving, warming, something consistent. You can go in the other room and wash your clothes. You have your own bed to lay in, um, with clean sheets. You have new clothes, new shoes, things like that you didn't have. So it's definitely the mental struggle for some of these children is you don't know. You don't know until you pull that bandage back and see how bad the wound is.
Mhm.
And it's hearing their stories and knowing how to help them,
Mhm.
really. Knowing what to address. Okay, hey, you struggle with confidence because you thought you were always ugly, you know. So things like
You just gave language to what's often silent epidemic, and it reminds us that trauma in our youth isn't our fault, but healing in our adulthood is our responsibility. Let's talk about what it means to carry many crowns, because being a wife, a mama, a businesswoman, a healer, a nurturer, all of it at once isn't for the faint of heart. And yeah, we do it every day. Not because we're trying to prove anything, but because we're built for legacy. Still,
right.
even legacy bearers get tired. From wife to mother to entrepreneur to woman, you carry a lot. So, what does it really look like to live with all of those roles at once? And how do you stay mentally and emotionally grounded through it all?
Of course, my faith is definitely a big foundation of that. My husband is a huge support. Really, I'm his support, but he's definitely my rock for sure. Really, sometimes it's a little hard to be honest, but the discipline of waking up every day and showing up for them in the way that I envisioned, in the way, like have my mom was a single mom, and I watched her get up with discipline every day, ride the bus to work, and do it five days out of the week, be tired, wake up at 3, not get home until probably 12 hours later. But it's just keeping that discipline and that structure, and that consistency for the children, so that they understand and that they feel safe and they feel supported. But mentally, you're tired sometimes, you're not always going to be balanced, but you got to get up every day and you have to fight. You have to say, okay, today, hey, yesterday I didn't do too well. You got to do that check off list in the morning. Hey, I didn't do too well yesterday. Okay, I want to accomplish this and this, and figure out what it takes for you to get those things accomplished. Also, communicating that with my husband and seeing exactly what he needs accomplished as well, because it's not only me in this fight.
What I hear from that is grace, having grace within yourself. It's not something that you're beating up yourself about it. Oh, I didn't get it done. But it's more so, okay, giving myself some grace. Let's just make some readjustments. Another beautiful thing I heard is communication, communicating.
Out in many different ways, and now we're fussing, and he's like, "Did you just need a nap? Is that all you needed? And you took me from here to here, and you just needed to sleep 30 minutes, or you just needed
Mhm.
me to go pick up the girls while you read a book or took a bath? Okay, let me give that to you, because I need you. I need you back." So yeah, the mental piece is definitely.
Reminds me as well that we don't have to choose between purpose or peace. We can really work on carrying both. When we make space for softness, grace, and alignment are very important. I see this tension often. Women who are holding it all together publicly, but inside there's grief, overwhelm, exhaustion. They don't feel safe enough to name. And in that silence, the survival script starts running, again. So, how do we begin to dismantle this mindset that as Black and Brown women, we must always be strong, unbothered, and in control? What happens when we finally give permission to be soft and supported?
I think we live, like you said, in our true purpose at that point. I'm a better wife, I'm a better mother when I'm soft, because when I'm strong, it's, I could look like the Hulk. I could look like, and I don't like feeling like that anymore. I've had to be strong for too long, and that is not something I want to take on. I have the support. I definitely believe in being more softer nowadays. It's softer is stronger, to be honest.
And that's really examples of permission for women who's tired of performing, strength to rest, to cry when we need to, but to ask for help, to heal. Sometimes laying it down also means opening ourselves up to safe, healthy guidance. That's something we don't talk about enough, how healthy our inner wounds make space for trusting others again. So, how has doing your inner work helped you release the pressure to always control everything and instead begin trusting safe, healthy relationships in your life, especially in partnership or marriage?
It's definitely a journey. As being a mother, just ordering my house, I have to still maintain like that softness about it, to where it's like, hey, but in my softness, I have to use some of that strength, and make sure that I'm guiding my children, that I'm supporting my household in the best way.
It really gives us a reminder submission is not weak, how the world makes it
Not
seem.
at
So,
all.
it's alignment out of wisdom, and shift only comes when we the work within ourselves first. It's very important that we really take that time to do that inner work. And of course, we're always evolving and growing, but most importantly, making sure we're in a better mental health space. We live in a world that constantly tells women to find themselves outside of their roles, but what if that real healing, the real wholeness is found within them? Your mental health isn't about escaping your identity, it's about being rooted in the purpose already in your hands. So let's talk about what I call the independence myth. You know, the one, I don't need anybody, I got this. It sounds like strength, but it's often fear wearing a crown. So, for many of us, especially as Black and Brown women, we've been taught that softness equals weakness, that needing help means failure, but asking for help, that's where the healing begins. So, what would you say to the women still living in that mindset of, I don't need a man, I don't need help, I've got this, but deep down, she's tired, disconnected, and craving more? How have you seen the power in asking for help and doing the inner work?
The inner work, like I said, makes me a better wife, a better mother, a better friend, a better sister, and just, not holding on to it and being prideful. Finding the humility in it and just saying, hey, I need help. Or, letting my husband, hey, letting him know, hey, you're doing a great job. I need you. Things like that, that encourage him as well. Because, it's not only about me, but, as women, we can be emotional
Mhm.
and let that carry us away. But I would say to that woman, let go. She's lonely. That woman is lonely. She's tired. And I know this because I was that woman. I was that woman. I was strong. I could do anything. Um, and a lot of those qualities would work for certain things that need to be accomplished. But as far as a whole, it was to my destruction, really.
Yeah.
It just it wasn't beneficial.
The truth is, as women, we often wear so many roles from a nurturer, provider, visionary, protector of the children. And somewhere along the way, society tried to convince us that those roles were limitations. But what if they're actually our superpowers? And as someone who became a wife, a mother early on, how did you navigate the journey of not losing yourself in those roles, but instead finding yourself within them?
Oh, wow. I was a very young mother. I was about to almost be 19 when I gave birth. Um, it was hard. I struggled, but I didn't give up because I knew what I wanted for my children, what I wanted for me as I thought. So I thought, but I think, like I said early on, it was definitely a struggle. I've ever seen it as a burden.
Hmm.
I think I've seen challenges as burdens, but as far as like motherhood or being a wife, it's never been a burden.
Hmm. Hmm.
As being a wife and a mother definitely has been some challenging days, nights, weeks, months,
Hmm.
but I don't think I've lost myself in it so much, but sometimes you can forget yourself. So I think even self-care is important, making sure I get up and I comb my hair because guess what? Also, I have 6 daughters. So somebody's watching me.
Yes.
Somebody's watching like, man, mom always gets up. Mama, in the back of their mind, what if that's part of their journey later to encourage them? Hey, my mom never gave up. My mom got up. She used to, make sure her hair was combed and make sure, she looked nice for my dad and she greeted him at the door and she had a hot meal. And those become her standards, just redefining what that looks like,
Yes.
even coming from where I came from.
That's beautiful because the truth is, generation after generation, the system has tried to break the strength of Black and Brown families. They divided us, criminalized us, stripped us of our lineage, and they try to rewrite our legacy, but even through all of that, we're still here, we're still rising. From your lens, how have generational systems, foster care, incarceration, poverty, trauma, impacted Black and brown families? And I know that's a loaded question, and you could provide some examples or things you've seen, but how can we also begin to rewrite that start
Beginning to rewrite that starts with me, redefining what good looks like, then my children will mirror that. We also have like a nonprofit where we do work with the youth in the community where we're able to um do outreach with them, even if it's just to, give a backpack, play a game, have breakfast with them, things like that, where it encourages them with something that they don't usually get or have around. That gives them some type of hope, um, or or hope to to dream, because when I was a little girl, I dreamed of having, my children and my husband, but somewhere in between is where it got kind of foggy. So,
Yeah.
but now I get to remember those things that I hoped for and that I wanted, and remember those things that encouraged me to have them.
That sprinkle of seeds that perhaps whether it was someone in your life early on that gave you the encouragement to say, "Hey, no, there's more. This doesn't have to end
Absolutely.
here." Even like the things that you've seen, whether, witnessing loved ones in and out of prison or, all of the just the dysfunction, but being able to now in your life, like you said, being able to give back to the youth, to the community through that program, and that's amazing, and that's a way of breaking that generational trauma from continuing.
Absolutely.
What does it mean to you to be a revolutionary woman? A woman who is doing the healing work, but taking care of her children, her family, and challenging the generational narratives we've been handed.
It's best described out of the Bible where it says, up ye women that are at ease. We got a job to do. And they're over here scrolling on TikTok when, these men need help. The children need help. And we have huge roles as mothers, as friends, as we have a lot to bring to the table. But some women would say we are the table, and that's a delusion in their mind. But again, it's redefining that narrative and pulling out that strength in a whole different way.
When we talk about revolutionary, we can't skip over the restoration of the Black and Brown family because for too long we've been pitted against one another. We've been told we're too broken, too angry, too behind.
Yeah.
But we are the evidence that restoration is possible. So, in your eyes, what does it really look like to truly strengthen the BIPOC families today? And how does mental health, emotional awareness, and faith play a role in that restoration?
Mental health definitely is a larger epidemic than we think among the brown and black families. It's something that's not acknowledged a lot of the times, like, oh, they're okay. No, they're crazy and they need help,
Yes, yes, yes.
and we just write it off. It's like asking a black person to go to the doctor.
Hmm.
No, I'll be fine. You're like, what happened to him? He had a heart attack. We're
Yeah.
stubborn. We're
Yes.
stubborn as mules. So, it's just again, it starts with each of us just redefining the whole family, in general. Like who wouldn't want that comfort, that protection, of that stability of, husband, wife, children. I'm never lonely. Matter of fact, I need some alone time sometime, but I know somebody's always gonna be there loving on me, even when I don't wanna be loved.
What you're really pinpointing is addressing the mental health issues, the stigma that's still there, whether the mental health, the physical health, the spiritual health, right? That we don't talk about, that we just kind of do the hush hush is very important to really do the inner work so that we could actually see ourselves in the mirror as valuable, beautiful, worthy people.
But how does that come up. You get what I'm saying? Like, do we have those resources?
Mm,
Do our children see enough imagery? You know,
mhm.
I make it a point for my girls to have art on their wall that looks like them,
There you go.
dolls in their toy box that look like them. For them, they have all the confidence in the world. They know they're beautiful. Why? Because I let them know that every day. And I think instilling that early is not is better than us doing the repairs later. Can it be done? Yes. And it has to be like, we're lost as people. And it's sad sometimes to see, um because you can tell they don't know any better. They were raised different. They had a different struggle. Of course, everybody's story is different, but sometimes you can just see they were at a disadvantage.
It's the lack of, like you said, the lack of resources, a system that's already, against,
It's rigged.
Yes, it is. It is. You face it daily. And so going to that question, restoration, what does that look like? You know, in other words, you were talking about representation, right? Imagery, right? To
Yes.
our children, the youth, seeing them, their worth.
Right. It's pouring into them. People want to, you can buy the nicest sneakers. But, like, if you're not doing nothing for your community, those sneakers don't mean nothing because there's still a kid out there who needs some, or you know what I mean, or that can't read, that maybe you can help them, read each week, or it's just one of those things where we got to start helping each other. We see it.
That's powerful because healing isn't just a hashtag. It's hard, holy, consistent work that we must do through our communities, education, helping them see who they are. That's how cycles begin to be broken. Love, when rooted in healing, becomes revolutionary. Wholeness isn't found in isolation, but it's found in connection, in softness. We were just talking about that earlier, in learning to trust again and doing the inner work so that we can show up fully, not just for ourselves, but for our husbands, our children, our calling. So, why is it so important for women to do the inner healing in order to be fully available to our marriages, our children, and our communities?
We make ourselves useless when we can't get out of our own way. It's
Mhm.
the best way to say it.
Yep.
When we're hung up on emotions, when you know the neck roll.
It's like, I could do it.
So I think it's definitely doing the work within us to make sure that we show up properly for that righteous man.
hmm
Cause then we're useless still.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
but we gotta do the work. We gotta
Yes.
do the work, definitely. That comes with accountability. So it's, recognizing and saying the things that, no one sees.
You can't pour love into others while bleeding within. What you just said reminds us that our families deserve the healed version of us. Not the perfect version, but the whole one. And that wholeness begins with self examination, putting in the work, and working towards leaving a remarkable legacy. And speaking of legacy, we often think of it as what we leave behind, but I believe legacy is also what we choose to carry forward with intention, what we model for our children, our communities, and our inner child. If you could go back and speak to that little girl in you, the one navigating the systems, silence, and survival, what will you tell her now? And as a grown woman who's still rising?
Oh wow. I'd have a conversation with her. We'd have to go for ice cream.
Mhm.
I would I would tell her how beautiful she is, of course, because I remember as a little girl, it was like, I felt beautiful, but there was always that question on how beauty was defined. So I would tell her, you're going to be a great person. Keep at it. Trusting God. What you're thinking is right. I remember reading my Bible and being like, man, he sounds like
Mhm.
but it was always mixed messages. So just tell myself that I'm beautiful and to keep my faith and don't give up.
That message is really also for every woman still holding her inner child in the quiet, aching hands. You remind us that healing our past isn't just possible, but it's personal. I see how often women are pouring from places that they haven't had the chance to process. And as a woman who's had to do her own inner work, that's why I created Petals of the Past, a journal for emotional restoration for this exact reason. It's more than just a journal, it's really a guided tool with simple prompts and real therapist based insight to help you slow down and get honest with what's underneath. Sometimes we're carrying things we didn't even realize were still affecting us. Old wounds, buried, emotions, unspoken stress.
We're carrying baggage that our grandmother had, and
Yeah.
we don't even know what we're carrying. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my grandma's stuff. What's it doing in here? This my mom's bag. This is why this thing's so heavy. And
And
so
yes, it
that
goes deeper
generation,
than that. Petal of the Past, it really helps to gently peel back those layers and start healing from the inside out. Whether
uh,
you're a wife, a mother, or just trying to feel like yourself again, it was made with you in mind. So you could grab it on Amazon, Etsy. I'll have the links down below because real healing starts with looking inward. So, as we close, I want to say this: you don't have to wear every crown perfectly, but you can wear them with purpose, with intention, with healing in your hands. If you could leave one final seed of encouragement, what would you say?
I would say don't give up. Sometimes you don't see seeds. You don't see the seeds until they've done the work right to grow out of the ground. They have to be watered. They have to be planted right. They have to be rooted before they rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't give up because patience, have patience
Yes.
with yourself. Gotta get the right amount of sunlight,
Hmm.
water, so and then seeing the growth so that you can continue nurturing it. Because when seedlings pop out of the ground, that's just one stage. They haven't even blossomed yet. So you got to really think about that in terms of, where you're at and where you want to go. I definitely think that putting in the work, not giving up, giving yourself patience because it does take time, setting those goals, um, checking off the list. If it takes 6 months or 6 years, one step in the right direction is progress. So, we have to be gentle with ourselves sometimes, and not give up in that process.
Before we let you go, can you give a shout out about your nonprofit? I know you were mentioning about it earlier, where they
Right.
could find you.
Right. So Righteous Grind is under Life Builders South. It's working with the youth, empowering them, running programs to teach them life skills that they'll take with them, and like you said, giving them that seedling of hope. So that's Life Builders South. And I also have a clothing, for men and women, which is Spirit Hip Hop .store, and I have a brand called Heart of a Lion. So it talks to that softness, but that strength in it.
Thank you. I'll include all of those details in the description below. Thank you for being with us today. And as always, take care of your mind, your heart, and your roots. Until next time, this is She's in Session.